The security camera caught it all. 10:47 p.m., a man crossing a perfectly manicured lawn, toolbox gripped in white knuckles, purpose in every step. This wasn't a late-night home repair. This was Oren Finch, about to shatter 4 lives forever. What transforms a quiet, poetry-quoting computer shop owner into someone capable of murder? The answer lies in a dangerous game played between 2 identical twins and the men who married them. Have you ever wondered how thin the line is between harmless fantasy and deadly obsession? What happens when you can no longer tell where your relationship ends and another begins? You might think you understand where this story leads. A crime of passion, perhaps, or jealousy gone wrong. But the truth behind what happened in Lakemont, Oregon, will challenge everything you believe about identity, desire, and the human capacity for self-deception. In the next few minutes, I'll take you inside a tragedy that began with a joke at a dinner party and ended with 2 bodies on a basement floor. You'll learn how 4 intelligent adults created rules for a forbidden experiment, believing they could control the chaos they were inviting into their lives. Stay with me to discover how a seemingly perfect arrangement between twins and their husbands collapsed into bloodshed, and why psychologists now use this case to warn others about the dangers of blurring boundaries between identical siblings. Welcome back to Altar of Secrets, where we explore the hidden corners of human relationships that turn deadly. Today's story will take you deep into a psychological maze few have dared to enter. If this is your first time here, join our community by hitting that subscribe button. Turn on notifications so you never miss our uploads, each one carefully researched and crafted to both entertain and educate. Your engagement and comments help others find these important stories, and your contributions can help someone else out there. Tell us in the comment, have you ever found yourself in a twisted, unethical peer game that you later regretted or maybe enjoyed? How did it end, and how did you move on or heal? This particular case has haunted relationship therapists and forensic psychologists since it happened. The questions it raises about boundaries, consent, and the human need for uniqueness remain unanswered. Now, let's return to Lakemont, Oregon, where 2 mirror image sisters were about to learn that sharing everything has consequences no one could have predicted. Lakemont, Oregon exists in the fold of valley mountains where gossip travels as quickly as morning fog. It's the kind of town where neighbors know whose car is parked in your driveway before you do. In 2013, those neighbors couldn't stop talking about the Ashcroft twins, Delphine and Thalassa. You couldn't tell them apart unless you knew to look for that tiny freckle behind Delphine's left ear, said Martha Knowles, who taught both girls in 3rd grade. Even their handwriting matched. It wasn't just their faces, it was everything. The way they laughed, how they tilted their heads when confused. The twins moved through childhood as a single unit, finishing each other's sentences, acing the same tests, crushing on the same boys. They wore identical outfits until high school, when Thalassa cut her hair shoulder length while Delphine kept hers long. This small rebellion hinted at the diverging paths to come. After graduating together from Portland State, their lives took different turns. Delphine pursued nursing with characteristic intensity. At a hospital fundraiser, she met Caldwell Ashcroft, whose family owned the town's only craft brewery. His confidence and grand romantic gestures won her over within months. Thalassa took a more winding path through art school until landing at a graphic design firm. At a weekend gallery opening, she struck up a conversation with a man hiding in the corner, clutching his wine glass too tightly. Oren quoted Emily Dickinson when I asked why he looked uncomfortable. Thalassa told friends later, "Who does that? I had to know more." Oren Finch, with his computer repair shop and collection of first edition poetry books, became Thalassa's counterweight, quiet where she was animated, thoughtful where she rushed ahead. The couples married within 6 months of each other. At Thalassa's wedding, guests noted how Caldwell watched the ceremony with unusual intensity, his eyes fixed on the bride who looked exactly like his wife. By 2019, both couples had settled into near-identical cedar houses on Rainwater Lane. The property, once a single large lot, had been split by a previous owner, creating mirror homes separated by a shared garden. When the second house went up for sale, Caldwell convinced Thalassa and Oren to buy it. "We can share childcare, barbecue weekends, maybe even a vegetable garden," he told them over dinner. Family should stay close. And at first, the arrangement worked beautifully. The two households blended seamlessly into one extended family unit. Mornings began with coffee on the connecting patio. Evenings ended with board games and home-cooked meals that stretched past midnight. Neighbors noticed the two couples sitting on matching porch swings, often with wine glasses in hand, their laughter carrying across the quiet street. Children moved freely between the houses, considering both places home. "They created this perfect little world," said Rita Jensen, who lived across the street. "You'd see them working in the garden together, two women who looked exactly alike, down to their movements, and their husbands watching them with such intensity." If you're enjoying this story, take a second to hit that like button and drop a comment telling us what you think so far. Your engagement helps our channel grow. What outsiders couldn't see were the private moments, the lingering glances between Caldwell and his sister-in-law during kitchen cleanup, or how Oren would sometimes mistake Delphine for his wife in the shadowy backyard. These momentary confusions were laughed off, but each planted a dangerous seed. The shift from innocent neighbors to something more complex began on a Friday night in March. The twins had opened their third bottle of Merlot while their husbands mixed cocktails in the kitchen. Photos from that evening show four smiling adults, unaware they were about to cross a threshold they could never return from. That night changed everything, a mutual friend later told investigators. They'd been playing this game called Twin Truths, where they revealed childhood secrets. The wine had everyone loose and laughing. As midnight approached, Caldwell mixed up their glasses, accidentally handing Thalassa the drink he'd made for his wife. When she pointed out the mistake, Delphine leaned back on the couch and said the words that would ultimately doom them all. "No one would ever know if we switched." The room fell silent for 3 heartbeats before erupting in nervous laughter. "You're joking, right?" Oren asked, his voice higher than usual. "Am I?" Delphine replied, glancing at her sister with a raised eyebrow. "We fooled our own parents until we were 12. The subject changed, but the idea remained, hovering over subsequent gatherings like an unspoken challenge. Friends noticed a shift in the dynamics between the four. Innocuous comments took on double meanings. Inside jokes multiplied. If you think this case sounds interesting so far, make sure to subscribe right now and ring that notification bell. This story takes turns you won't believe, and I don't want you to miss a single detail of what happens next. Within weeks, the joke had transformed into hypothetical questions. Would it be wrong? Would anyone get hurt? Wasn't curiosity natural? We talked about it like it was a thought experiment, Thalassa's journal entry from April read. Something fascinating to consider, but never actually do. Halloween arrived 7 months after that wine-soaked evening. Lakemont's annual masquerade gala, a fundraiser for the local hospital, provided the perfect canvas for what would come next. The twins appeared that night in identical black gowns and ornate Venetian masks adorned with silver filigree and peacock feathers. Their husbands wore matching suits with simpler masks. Under the red-tinted chandeliers of the community center, they were indistinguishable to everyone except each other. The masks gave them permission. Dr. Marcia Williams, a psychologist who later studied the case, explained, "Anonymity often unlocks behavior we normally suppress." At precisely 10:30 p.m., captured on multiple attendees' social media posts, Caldwell extended his hand to Thalassa while Oren approached Delphine. For 2 songs, they danced with each other's spouses. No one in the crowd noticed. "My heart pounded so hard I thought everyone could hear it," Delphine later wrote in a statement. "We'd crossed no physical line, but something fundamental had shifted." The drive home was electric with unspoken tension. Security footage from their street shows the 2 cars arriving minutes apart, all 4 adults standing in the shared driveway for nearly 20 minutes before separating to their respective homes. Before we continue with what happened after that fateful Halloween night, take a moment to like this video and share your theories in the comments. Have you ever known twins who used their identical appearance to switch places? That night, while removing her makeup, Thalassa texted her sister, Did you feel it too? Delphine's response came instantly, yes. But where do we go from here? Where they went was toward a cliff none of them saw coming. The morning after Halloween brought hushed conversations behind closed doors. By evening, Caldwell had texted the others. We need to talk about last night. Dinner at 8. Around the dining table, with children safely asleep, 4 adults drafted what would later be known in court documents as the arrangement. If we're going to do this, we need clear boundaries, Thalassa insisted, always the organized one. This isn't casual. They borrowed terminology from relationship forums, discussing consent, time limitations, and emotional safeguards. On Oren's vintage typewriter, they composed a document that would later become Exhibit A in his manslaughter trial. The Sisters' Agreement, they titled it. Each twin signed twice, once with her own name, then with her sister's. Their husbands witnessed the signatures. No overnight stays, no solo contact, no digital evidence. Everything happens with all 4 present or aware, read the 3rd paragraph. Any participant may end the experiment at any time, no questions asked. For 6 months, they maintained what appeared to outsiders as normal lives. The twins continued their careers, Delphine at the hospital, Thalassa designing websites from home. Their husbands ran their businesses. Their children played together, oblivious. But weekends transformed them. They rented beach houses under false names, reserved hotel suites with adjoining rooms, created elaborate scenarios at home when children visited grandparents. They glowed with conspiracy, said James Morgan, who met them for drinks during this period. They had this electricity between them, these knowing looks. I assumed they'd started some exciting business venture together. The business was pleasure, calculated, contained, and consensual. Each encounter followed their written protocol. Each boundary respected, each rule observed. The perfect system, Caldwell bragged to Oren during a brewery visit. Everyone gets what they want, nobody gets hurt. Before we continue, I'm curious, are you watching from somewhere with strict social norms or a more progressive region? Drop your location in the comments. The illusion of control sustained them through winter and into spring. Then came the first hairline fracture in their perfect arrangement. April brought the first violation of their carefully constructed rules. Caldwell began seeking moments alone with Thalassa, brief conversations when Oren stepped away, text messages that didn't include the others. He would bring me coffee exactly how I like it, 2 sugars, almond milk, cinnamon on top, without asking, Thalassa told police. Not how Delphine takes hers. Mine. These small attentions grew. He remembered details about her childhood that she'd never shared with him directly, stories Delphine must have told. He started calling her first with news, not his wife. I noticed he laughed differently with her, Delphine confessed in her victim impact statement. A deeper laugh, more genuine. With me, it became performative. Oren saw it too. The precise moment their arrangement began to collapse came when he borrowed Caldwell's phone to look up a restaurant address. A notification flashed, a photo automatically backed up to cloud storage. The image showed Thalassa in Caldwell's brewery office, wearing Delphine's distinctive green sundress, laughing at something off camera. The metadata revealed it was taken during what they designated a no-contact weekend, a direct violation of their primary rule. Rather than confrontation, Oren retreated. The computer technician began documenting each transgression in an encrypted file labeled variables. His entries evolved from factual observations to darker contemplations. Day 47, C touched T's wrist for 17 seconds while D washed dishes. Unnecessary contact. Day 58, C canceled our golf game, claimed work emergency. His car spotted at T's favorite hiking trail. Day 63, perhaps some variables need elimination. The equation cannot balance otherwise. If you're finding these psychological dynamics fascinating, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on. Within the homes on Rainwater Lane, tensions tightened like piano wire. Delphine grew quieter, watching her husband watch her sister. Thalassa began checking her phone more frequently, smiling at messages she wouldn't share. And Oren, quiet, poetry-loving Oren, searched online for untraceable poisons, their chemical compositions, and their effects on the human body. March 2020 brought COVID-19 and with it, lockdown orders that trapped the 4 within their connected properties. Physical distance from the outside world eliminated their final buffer. No more weekend getaways, no social gatherings to maintain appearances. The pandemic compressed everything, said Detective Lorna Chen, who led the investigation. These 4 people were suddenly confined to their homes, with nowhere to escape their complicated emotions. Caldwell's taproom closed, leaving him restless. He converted his basement into a small bottling operation for delivery orders. Delphine picked up extra hospital shifts as COVID cases mounted, often working 16-hour rotations. I was saving lives while my own life came apart. Her journal entry from April read, "Coming home exhausted to an empty bed, knowing exactly where my husband was." With children home from school, childcare became critical. Thalassa, with her remote design work, became the default caretaker for both families. Afternoons found her watching all the children while helping Caldwell bottle his latest creations in his basement. These basement sessions stretched longer. Neighbors reported seeing lights in Caldwell's workshop until midnight, music playing softly as 2 silhouettes moved behind frosted windows. The breaking point arrived on May 14th. Bone-tired from a double shift, Delphine returned home to find her husband's house empty, her sister's shoes by his back door. A gut feeling pulled her toward the brewery downtown. Through the office door, left partially open, she witnessed Caldwell kneeling before her sister. In his fingers gleamed a diamond ring. Not just any ring, but her grandmother's heirloom, promised to be passed from Ashcroft wife to daughter for generations. "I'll give you what she can't," Caldwell whispered, sliding it onto Thalassa's finger. "A life that's yours alone, not shared." Delphine drove home in a daze, tears blurring traffic lights. At 10:42 p.m., she sent Oren a text that would be read aloud in court months later. "They're replacing us." 3 words that ignited a powder keg. Oren's response came as movement, not text. The neighbor's security camera captured him striding across the shared lawn at 10:53 p.m., metal toolbox in hand. Inside, a .380 pistol purchased months earlier, zip ties from his workshop, and a syringe of pentobarbital taken from a rescue shelter where he occasionally volunteered. "I wasn't thinking clearly," Oren later testified. "Everything compressed into one thought: protect what's mine." Inside Caldwell's basement, the confrontation exploded immediately. Delphine accused her twin of identity theft more profound than credit card fraud, stealing her life, her husband, her future. Thalassa denied romantic intentions, claiming the ring was merely symbolic of their special connection. "It's not what you think," Caldwell insisted, stepping toward Delphine. Oren, seeing movement, fired. The single bullet traveled through Caldwell's collarbone and grazed Delphine's shoulder before lodging in a wooden beam. The syringe dropped, its contents spilling. In the chaos, Thalassa stepped backward, slipped on spilled beer, and struck her head against a steel fermentation tank. The impact caused immediate cerebral hemorrhaging. Caldwell died within minutes, blood pooling beneath him on the concrete floor. Thalassa never regained consciousness, passing away 2 days later in the same hospital where her sister had worked. When police arrived, they found Oren kneeling beside Thalassa, reciting Tennyson poetry while pressing a futile hand to her wound. "For men may come and men may go, but I go on forever." If you find yourself gripped by this tragic turn, hit that like button and share this video. Your engagement helps stories like this reach others who might learn from these devastating consequences. Delphine, bleeding but conscious, repeated one phrase to first responders: "I just wanted to know which one of us he really loved. I never wanted anyone to die." The perfect symmetry of their lives shattered irreparably. 2 people dead, 2 survivors left to make sense of what their curiosity had wrought. The State v. Finch trial opened 6 months later, drawing national attention. Court sketches showed Oren, now gaunt and hollow-eyed, beside his public defender. Across the aisle sat Delphine, her shoulder bandaged, refusing to meet his gaze. Oregon media outlets fought for every detail. The breakthrough came when a tech journalist uncovered forum accounts linked to the couple's IP addresses, Mirror Heart and Twin Flame Brews, with posts dating back months before the tragedy. "Seeking advice on boundaries when identical twins share intimate spaces," read one post. "How do you maintain individual connections when physical appearances are identical?" Responses ranged from supportive to scandalized, creating a digital trail of their escalating experiment. Prosecutors painted Oren as calculating, highlighting his variables document with its increasingly disturbing entries. They produced the toolbox contents as Exhibit C, arguing premeditation and intent. This was no heat-of-moment reaction, Assistant DA Monica Phillips told jurors. This was a man who documented his grievances for months, acquired weapons, and planned to eliminate those who threatened his fantasy. Defense attorneys countered with an imperfect self-defense theory, claiming Oren believed Caldwell intended to harm Delphine with the sedative. Delphine's testimony proved most devastating. Weeping, she described finding her grandmother's ring on her sister's finger, the ultimate betrayal in their unwritten twin code. "I wanted to save my marriage," she whispered. "Instead, I destroyed everything." The courtroom fell silent as she held up her bandaged hand, now missing the ring that had symbolized 3 generations of Ashcroft wives. For those following this case closely, we've created an in-depth analysis of similar crimes involving identity confusion. Visit our channel page and leave a comment about which aspect of this psychological phenomenon you find most disturbing. After 8 days of deliberation, the jury returned a split verdict: guilty of second-degree manslaughter for Caldwell's death, not guilty of intentional homicide for Thalassa's. They determined her head injury was accidental, a tragic consequence of panic rather than purpose. Oren received an 18-year sentence, his gaze fixed on Delphine as officers led him away. She never looked up. Beyond the courtroom drama, psychologists found rich material in the Ashcroft Finch case. Dr. Raymond Walsh of Columbia University coined the term genetic mirroring to describe what happened on Rainwater Lane. When identical twins appear in adult relationships, observers often project interchangeability onto them, Dr. Walsh explained in his analysis. Their individuality becomes secondary to their matching DNA. This phenomenon strips twins of separate identities, reducing them to mirror images rather than distinct people. The 4 adults had fallen into this psychological trap, viewing the twins as interchangeable parts rather than separate women with unique inner lives. Most fascinating was how they codified this dehumanization in their written agreement, noted forensic psychologist Dr. Theresa Kim. By signing each other's names, they literally authorized the erasure of individual boundaries. This wasn't about sex or even love, Dr. Kim concluded. This was about possession and identity, the fear of being replaceable and the thrill of being indistinguishable. The prosecution's clinical psychiatrist put it more bluntly: 4 intelligent people convinced themselves they could outsmart human nature. They created rules for an emotion-based experiment. That's like using a paper umbrella in a hurricane. If you're finding the psychological aspects of this case compelling, make sure to subscribe to our channel. We explore the mind's darkest corners every week, examining how normal people cross into criminal territory. The twin cedar houses on Rainwater Lane stand empty now. A real estate investor from Seattle purchased both properties, but has yet to find tenants willing to live where such tragedy occurred. Vines crawl up the porch railings, and the once shared garden has grown wild with neglect. Delphine sold everything within weeks of the verdict. She changed her last name and moved to an undisclosed location with her children. According to court records, she requested no contact with Oren's family and declined all interview requests except one, a magazine profile where she offered her only public statement on the events. "We were trying to control chaos by making rules," she told the journalist. But you can't legislate emotion. Envy doesn't read contracts. Obsession doesn't care about notarized pacts. The children, now in therapy, live with the complex legacy of parents who crossed boundaries most people instinctively recognize. School officials report they're adapting well but struggle with questions about their family history. In Lakemont, residents speak of Rainwater Lane in hushed tones. The brewery closed permanently. Oren's computer shop was sold to pay legal fees. All physical traces of the 4 participants in this tragedy have been erased, yet their story continues to resonate in psychological literature and relationship forums. The lesson isn't about alternative lifestyles, concluded Dr. Walsh. It's about respecting the fundamental human need for unique identity, especially for those who share identical DNA. Looking back at this tragedy, several warning signs flashed bright red long before that fatal night. Recognition of these signals might have changed everything. First came the gradual abandonment of their written rules. Caldwell's private moments with Thalassa, the secret photo, the escalating emotional attachment. When agreements shift from mutual protection to obstacles, relationships have already begun to fracture. Second was Oren's retreat into secret documentation rather than open communication. His variables file showed a mind trying to control through calculation what needed honest conversation. Third, and perhaps most critical, was the failure to acknowledge that physical similarity never extends to emotional experience. The twins looked identical but felt differently, loved differently, and needed differently. "What breaks my heart," wrote one relationship therapist who studied the case, "is how easily this could have been prevented through basic honesty." What would you have done if you noticed your partner's attention shifting toward your sibling? Would you confront them immediately or gather evidence first? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for joining us at Altar of Secrets. If this story impacted you, please subscribe and share with others who might learn from these painful lessons. Until next time, remember that healthy relationships require both clear boundaries and the courage to speak uncomfortable truths. The most dangerous agreements are those that pretend human emotions can be contained by rules on paper.